Before diving into advanced topics like connections and real-time notifications, let's address some hidden issues in our project. While it looks great on the surface, there are mistakes common when focusing on features over performance and maintainability like we did so far that we need to fix. We'll tackle these both in the front end with React.js and the back end with the Spring Boot in Docker. Without further ado, let me set up the project so we get into business. I'm gonna clone the project and follow the instructions on our README. Open the backend with IntelliJ and the front end with VS Code and run my Docker locally. Open a Chrome tab and add it next to my VS Code, not in this order. The first mistake that we have made is tied to Docker. The main idea of using Docker in a development setup is to make sure that whenever someone is onboarded on the project, he is able to be up and running very fast without problems. But for this to work, we need to specify the versions of the images that we are using. So I'm talking about the version of images that we have in our Docker Compose here. So we are saying that we are using MySQL latest, and also we didn't specify any version for Mailhawk. What happens is that every time someone runs Docker Compose app on his machine, the Docker is gonna go and grab the latest packages that are out there on Docker Hub, and a version of MySQL might be different, and we would have inconsistency among the team. And that's actually the main problem that Docker has been built to fix, okay? And we are kind of breaking it. So what we need to do is to specify a version for our MySQL. So I went into the Docker Hub and grabbed the latest one, which is being 9.1.0. Then I did also the same thing for the Mailhawk. I grabbed the latest one, it's version 1.0.1. So with that, we're sure that we have the same images. Now that we have fixed our Docker images problem, let me run the project so we tackle the next one. Then I'm gonna run the continuous build of Gradle and say don't run tests. And finally start the project. So as you can see, it's running on port 8080. Then we're going to go into our front end and run npm run dev. Let me log in with John Doe. So the second mistake that we have made in our project is that on our feed, we are getting from the backend a big object where like a big array where we have all the comments, all the posts, all the likes in one big giant JSON. Let me show you actually what we are getting back. So let me refresh. So it is this feed endpoint. So we are getting this giant JSON where we have the author, we have the likes, we have the comments when there are any, and our front end is using this one to show all of this. You might be saying, well, what is the problem with that? Well, the problem is that every time we make a like or a comment on a post, we are literally re-rendering all the components that are here. So we are re-rendering all the posts, all the likes, all the comments. So we are doing a lot of compute, and let's say in upcoming videos where we'll be having more posts, where we'll be having endless scrolling, our front end is going to be crashing. To deal with this problem, we are going to be updating both our front end code and our backend code. So in the front end first, we are going to go here in the features folder, in the feed folder, and then into the components, into the post. So as you can see, this post component is doing a lot of things, but for example, when we post a comment like on a post here, we are literally calling the set post that we are getting from the feed page and re-rendering all the other posts, which is like very not Reactly. Like this is not the idea of React. So you should be re-rendering only the thing that has changed. And why we are doing that? We are doing that because we only have one big giant array, and we need to go into this array, find the post that we are currently on, then update it, and then update its comment. So that's the problem that we need to fix. So for that, I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna say that the post that I will be getting from the backend is not going to be containing comments, but the comments I will be grabbing them from a different endpoint. Okay, also the likes, so I don't want to have the likes as part of the post, but I'm gonna be making a different API call to get it. So by doing that, we're gonna come here and we will be handling comments. So let me remove this. It's going to be like so, and we're gonna go say that this is going to be an array of comment. Okay, so by having these comments as part of an internal state, we are going to be making sure that when we update this comments array, we won't be updating the other posts that are here. Then we're going to do the same thing with our likes. So we'll be having an array of likes, set likes, and it's going to be an array of users. As you know, a like is actually like done by a user. And now that we have comments and likes as internal states, we're going to be able to actually simplify our post code. So we are going to be able to remove these two use effects, okay? And we're going to be handling them differently. So the first thing that we need to do is that, let me come like below here, and whenever we make a post, okay, we're going to be doing the same thing as before, but here, instead of updating all the posts that are out there, we are going to simply update the comments, okay, the state comments that we have internally, like this. Like we're gonna grab all the previous and then add the latest one. Actually, I'm gonna add it before, like so. Okay, then we're gonna also go into the delete command. So instead of updating all the posts that are on the page, I'm gonna simply update the comments, like so. Run a filter and remove the just deleted one, okay, like so. Again, when we do an edit, we were re-rendering all the posts. We don't need to do that anymore. So I'm gonna say set comments, okay, and so I'm gonna do a like map on the brief, okay, and if the ID is the ID that I have just gotten, I'm gonna update it. Otherwise, I will be using the command as it is, okay. Again, for the delete, instead of going through all the posts, this is a delete, okay, so this is deleting the post, not a comment, so that's good. So we're gonna go below here and we'll be having some errors here. So it's not, this is, we don't do that anymore, okay. So we'll be just using the likes again here as well, same. We're gonna say just likes dot length, okay. Here, instead of post dot comments, we will be using just the comments, and we actually don't need to check this because by default our state is a like an empty array, as we did here, as you can see. So we don't need that check anymore. Here as well. Sorry, I'm gonna remove this, and we don't need this check as well. So as you can see, guys, actually using TypeScript is very handy when you have like to modify your code like in a very like different way, okay. So that's it. But now let me, here as well, so it should be command.length, so there is no red except for this that will be changing. So now if I refresh, so we don't have any like and any comment, okay, we don't have them. So we need to make HTTP calls to get them upon the component rendering. So we're gonna say use effect, and I'm going to be calling it when the application render, and I'm gonna use a function called fetch comments. So I'm gonna be making Copilot is completing for me, which is good. So I will be making an API call to feed, then post ID, then comment, and it's going to be a get, okay, passing the header. And if the response is not okay, I'm gonna grab and throw the error message, and here catch it and log it, okay. That's all I'm doing. And then if the response is okay, I'm gonna grab the data and set my comments. And this one I'm going to call it here when the component render. Okay, and since we are like to call this endpoint, we need the post ID, we need to update here the array. Okay, so now if we look into our network tab here, if I refresh, as you can see, we are calling a and the endpoint for each post that is rendering, but we're getting this request method get is not supported. Why? Because on our backend we don't have this endpoint. Okay, and before going into the backend code base and add this endpoint, I'm also gonna be adding a use effect to fetch the likes. Okay, so it's going to be a post to this URL. So it's going to be post ID, and then we're gonna call the likes, pass the header, and it's the same. And then we are setting the likes here. So save it. If we inspect now, we'll also be making the same network call, but getting the same error. So let us go into our backend and add these two endpoints. So we're gonna go into the features, then into the feed, then into the controller. Here we'll be first adding an endpoint for getting our comments. Okay, I'm gonna paste it and explain what it's doing. So I'm gonna be adding it somewhere after, I'm gonna add it after add comment here. So we are gonna be like watching for the same endpoint, but with a get mapping. Okay, and then we are grabbing the ID of the post here, and we're returning a list of comments, and we need to create this get post comment in our service here. Simply we're gonna grab the post. Okay, sorry, it's going to be post, like using our repository. We're gonna get it, and if it doesn't exist, okay, we're gonna throw an error. And here, so instead of what Codepilot saying, we have actually a method to get all the sorry, that's what I wanted to do. So here I'm gonna say get all the comments. Okay, so as you remember on our post model, so here we have these comments, and now that we are sending them like from a different URL, we don't need to send this as part of the normal post. Okay, so for that we're gonna come here and we're gonna say to Jackson to ignore this. Jackson being the library that's serializing Java objects to JSON. Okay, then we're also going to be doing the same thing for the likes. So we're going to say don't send the likes. Okay, save, then come back here. So if we look into our front end here, if I refresh, so there isn't like any comment. This is why like we are not seeing anything. But if we look into the network and I refresh, okay, so as you can see, we're getting back an empty array. Okay, so that is working. The next thing that we need to do is to create the endpoint for our likes, and for that I'm gonna first paste the get post likes in our service here. So if you remember, on our post model we have the likes here, which is of type a set of users. Okay, so coming back here, so all we are doing is that we're grabbing the post, and if it doesn't exist, we're going to throw a post not found. Otherwise we're just going to call this. Okay, so we're going to go back into our controller here, and here below, after our put mapping for liking and disliking, I'm going to add a get mapping, which is going to be to post ID, then to likes. And here I will be so as you can see, be returning a, instead of list, it should be a set. Okay, so and I need to import it. Okay, so here as well, instead of list, it should be a set. Okay, so I will be returning a like set of users, and just calling the get post likes that we created in our service, and then returning it. Save. So if I get back to our front end and refresh, okay, so now we're getting actually the likes, as you can see. Okay, and if I comment something, so we are having it here, and if I refresh, we have our comments. Now every time that we make a change, okay, we are only be re-rendering this component, and all the others will be not changing. And there's one thing that we need to do here is that after the likes, and grab the post liked, okay, let's say here, and we're gonna update it. Okay, we're gonna go into the likes. This is going to be a type of user. Okay, so we are gonna go into the likes and see if there is one where the like ID is the same as our current user. So if we have that, we are gonna be updating the post liked state, which is this one. So here actually we don't need it anymore. By default, we're gonna say it's undefined, and we need to update this one to boolean or undefined. So coming back here, we need to update the dependency as we are relying on the user ID here. Okay, so now if we save, as you can see, upon loading, so before actually, like here our current user has liked and we are showing it. But if I like comment what we did just and refresh the page, like even if come on the post that our user has liked, there is no indicator. So that's why we need this. Okay, so now it's showing. And if you are only interested on the backend side of this video, you can stop here because we will be doing front-end stuff going further. Let me know what you have thought about this way of making the video in the comment section. If you have liked it, also please let me know by liking it or by posting a comment down below. Thank you so much, and see you in the next one. So going further, if our post liked, if this actually is undefined, meaning our use effect didn't run and didn't update it. Okay, if that's the case, I actually don't want the user to be liking it, or like I want him to not be able to do anything. Okay, because he might be saying, oh, I didn't like, I should like it. Okay, it's just that we didn't fetch its data. Okay, so for that we're gonna go here on the like button here, and I'm gonna say, okay, here I'm gonna say it is disabled when post like is undefined. Okay, I'm gonna go into this style to add an indicator here. So I'm gonna say that when it is disabled, okay, like so. Sorry, I wanted to say disabled. Instead of changing the color, I actually will be changing the cursor. Okay, here. So I'm gonna say cursor to wait. Okay, so now if I come back here to show you this loading indicator, I'm actually gonna comment out this. Yeah, it was yeah, here I'm gonna comment this one. Okay, so now if we hover, so didn't I add it on the right place? I feel like so. As you can see, we have this loading state, so we are sure that the user will not be clicking it. But even if it clicks, like nothing will happen because it's disabled. So let me add it back. Now you won't be seeing it because our API call is very quick. Okay, the other thing that we need to update is this time ago. Okay, so if we look for it, so it's actually we are rendering it using this time ago helper that's coming from the utils. Okay, but this is actually not going to be updating the time like without refreshing the page. Okay, if a user like comes into LinkedIn and he is like reading a post for, let's say, 1 hour, and when he started reading, the post was just posted, like the time indicator will not be updating. How we can fix that? So for that, we're going to actually be using a React component, and we'll be using a use effect where we would add a timeout, a set timeout. I'm going to go into the components here, and I'm going to create a component that's going to be called time ago. Okay, like so. Created time ago .tsx, then it's CSS. It's going to be time ago .model .css. Okay, so call it here. For now I'm going to just run the A, and here, so instead of rendering this like so, we're actually gonna be removing it, okay, and we're gonna render the time ago, sorry, the time ago component like so. And so for now we're just showing a as you can see a, okay. So what this time ago is going to contain, let me paste it and explain, okay. So we're gonna go into here and I'm gonna replace it. So we have our props, so we'll be getting a date and also an edited, which is going to be a boolean, okay. So why I did actually made this one optional, so it should be actually set. So we're gonna say that we're actually gonna grab the date and call our time ago here, and we're gonna have a state here, and we're gonna render it here. And also if the edited is true, we're gonna render this text, otherwise we'll render nothing, okay. Then the part that is changing now is this use effect. So we're not adding a use effect where we add a set interval that will run every second and call our time ago again with the date, okay. So with that, we're sure that this will change every time. But for now, as you can see, we're getting none because we're not passing actually the data here. So we're gonna pass the date, which is going to be our post dot creation date, okay. And then the edited is going to be equal to, we're gonna say not like post dot updated date. So actually if I remove this, we're gonna get an error. It's gonna say that type string undefined is not assignable to this, okay. So if the post has not been edited, this is going to be undefined, and when this is undefined, I'm just gonna be casting it to a to boolean. So if it is undefined, this is going to be false. If there is a string in here, this is going to be true, okay. So save it. As you can see now, we have something that's going to be changing every second, okay. And this one, we are actually gonna have it also in the comment component here because we were using time ago here as well, okay. So here, so we're gonna remove it and we'll be using a comment creation date and then comment and import it like so, okay. And we'll be having also some styles for this time ago here. So it's going to be having this color and this font size, which is going to be smaller, okay. And now we can go into the post and we're gonna remove the style that we had before. So we had it here as well. So we had a date, let me find it. So yeah, here as well, we don't need all of this anymore, okay. So as you can see now, if we look at them, so they are the same component. So the last thing that we need to optimize is the way that we are fetching data. So if, let's say, I'm going to go into the post component here, and if we look on how we are making HTTP calls to our backend, as you can see, every time we'll be having a try catch, then calling the endpoint, checking if the response is not okay, grabbing the error message, throwing it and doing something. For now we're just logging, but in some components we're showing error states, okay. So this is the same thing that we are doing over and over and over. And if actually we search for fetch here, we have called the fetch function a lot of times, and every time we are doing the same thing again and again, so which is repetition of code and logic, which is bad. So for that, we are actually going to be creating a utils where we're gonna commonize the way of fetching data. So for that, I'm gonna go into the SRC here and create a folder, because this is going to be used by all the features, okay. And then I'm gonna call it API .ts. So what we will be having in this file, let me paste it and explain what it's doing, okay. So here, so we'll be having a function that's called request, that's gonna be accepting an object, okay. And in this object, we're going to be accepting the endpoint as a string, the method, which are one of these, and by default is going to be get. Then we accept the body. Then we are going to be accepting two functions. So the first one is going to be called on success, and the other one is going to be on failure. On failure, we'll be passing to the callback a string, which is going to be the error message, okay? But for the on success, we don't want to define a type here. So because all the functions, all the components that will be using this request function, they will be getting different type of data from the API. So we need to find a way to make it generic, okay? So someone would add like just any here and not use any generic here, okay? But having any is like not very good. So for that, I thought we should be using a like generic here, okay? So we're gonna use a generic, and by doing that, we let the consumer define what kind of data he's getting back, and I will be showing you how he would pass the data type that he is using, okay? So then what we are doing here, so we're doing like before, we're gonna make a try catch, and we're gonna call using the base URL coming from .env here, and make the call, use the same method that we're getting here, set the headers, okay? So now we're able to set this authorization only in one place, okay? Then we're gonna set the content type. So the content type is always going to be application JSON, because that's how our backend is being built, okay? Then we're gonna pass a body. If the response is not okay, we're gonna grab it, like grab the response that we're getting from the API, because actually, like when you make an API call using fetch, okay, when you get a response that's not okay, like something like 500, it's not an error, so there won't be a error that being thrown by default. For that, we need to make it by hand. So we grab the messages coming from the response and then throw it. If the response is okay, we're simply gonna grab the data and pass it to our own success, okay? And that also, the response that we're getting back is always going to be of type JSON. That's how our API is built as well, okay? So then we're gonna call the on success, and if there was an error, we are gonna check if the error is an instance of error, then call the on failure with the message, okay? If it's not, we're gonna call this, okay? So that's this function. This is the function that we'll be using all over the application. And to show you how we would use this request and how we would pass this generic type, I'm gonna go into our features folder, into the context here, and here I'm gonna change one of the calls that we are making. So here we have a function that's called fetch user, where we're making this call. So now that we have a function to hide away all of this, let me actually comment it, okay? Comment it here, okay? And then I'm going to, now the loader is going to be like running forever because this is commented, okay? So now I'm gonna actually be defining this function differently. So I will be using, I'm gonna say await. We are going to call our request, okay? That's coming from the API, okay? And this request, how we are gonna be able to tell the data that we're getting back. So if you remember, we're getting a user, so that's why we're gonna say I'm getting a user back here, okay? Then we should be passing the params here. So the first one is going to be our endpoint. So our endpoint is going to be the same here, okay? So the same, but we don't need to pass the base URL because this is done in the function, okay? Then we don't need to pass the method because it's a get, which is going to be our default object, okay? Then what we will be doing on success. So when there is an on success, like when there is when the request passed, we're gonna grab the user, like we can call it data, okay? Data, and we're gonna call our set user and give it the data, okay? And when there is a failure, we are simply like we did here, we're just gonna be logging it, okay? So we're gonna say, we're gonna grab the error and we are going to say console.log the error. And as you can see, and after that we're going to set this loading to false. Okay, so as you can see, our function, we went from this to all of this to just this. So that's the benefit of sometimes when you are doing the same thing over and over, to like commonize it. Okay, so let me remove all of this, and I will be going all over the application and do the same thing. Like every time we have an API call, okay, I'm going to use our request. So as you can see, I have changed the sign up, so it's the same. It's just that when the response is not going to be an authentication response, okay, which is this interface. We're going to be getting the token and the message. Okay, so where was I? Yeah, no, I was here. So for the sign up, as you can see, we're getting an authentication response, and since we defined this, we're able to actually grab here the token as part of the data. So if I actually grab add data here and hover over, it's going to say that my data is of type authentication response. Okay, this is with the help of this generic typing. Okay, so I have done this all over the application also here. So everything is using now our request, and if you want to check all the changes, you're gonna be finding the GitHub link in the description below. So guys, that's it for this video. In upcoming videos, we will be handling real-time updates, we'll be handling connections, notifications. There's a lot to build, a lot to discover, and a lot to learn. So let me know anything that you want to share in the comment section. Like it if you find it helpful, share it with your friends who are also maybe interested in these topics, and see you in the next one very soon. Thank you so much.